In this episode, we are moving into a topic that sits a little differently from many of the others because it is not only about finding weaknesses or judging controls. It is about helping an organization get better, and that means providing useful guidance on information systems, IS, quality improvement in a way that is practical, clear, and responsible. New learners sometimes think quality improvement sounds vague, almost like a motivational phrase rather than a real professional activity. But in a business setting, it has very real meaning. Systems that process wrong data, confuse users, fail too often, recover slowly, or produce unreliable reports create waste, frustration, and risk even when they technically remain online. Quality improvement is the effort to make those systems more dependable, more accurate, more usable, and more aligned with business needs over time. The guidance part matters just as much, because an auditor or assurance professional may not own the system directly, but can still help management understand what should improve, why it matters, and how stronger practices can reduce repeated problems. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to begin is by defining quality in a way that makes sense for a beginner. In the context of IAS, quality does not mean perfection, and it does not mean a system that never experiences a problem. It means the system is fit for its intended purpose and performs in a dependable enough way that the organization can trust it to support business activity, decision-making, and control objectives. That includes whether the system works consistently, whether the information it handles is accurate enough, whether users can interact with it effectively, whether changes are introduced carefully, and whether the environment around it supports continued reliability. Quality improvement, then, is the process of identifying where the system or supporting processes fall short and helping the organization move toward stronger outcomes. This is important because poor quality is rarely limited to one technical bug. More often, it reflects gaps in design, testing, oversight, communication, ownership, or maintenance, which is why guidance on improvement must look beyond the surface symptom and help management see the bigger pattern underneath. One reason this subject matters so much is that system quality affects almost every part of an organization, even when employees do not use the word quality in daily conversation. A payroll system that calculates incorrectly creates financial and trust problems. A customer platform that is confusing or unstable affects revenue, service quality, and brand reputation. A reporting tool that produces inconsistent results weakens management decision-making and may even create compliance or audit issues. These are not isolated technical problems. They are business problems that happen to show up through systems. For that reason, quality improvement is not an optional cleanup activity that happens only when teams have extra time. It is part of responsible governance. When systems are poor in quality, staff often create workarounds, duplicate effort, ignore warnings, or lose confidence in official results. An auditor who provides guidance in this area is helping management protect value, reduce inefficiency, and improve trust in the systems people depend on every day, which makes the topic far more important than it first appears. It also helps to understand that quality has several dimensions, and an organization usually struggles when it focuses on only one of them. Some people think first about reliability, meaning whether the system stays available and performs consistently. Others think about accuracy, meaning whether the data and results are correct enough for business use. Still, others focus on usability, because a technically sound system may still be low quality if employees cannot navigate it without confusion or constant support. Security, maintainability, scalability, and recoverability also matter because a system that works well under perfect conditions but fails badly under stress or cannot be updated safely is still a quality concern. This is why quality improvement guidance should not become too narrow. If management fixes only visible defects while ignoring the design, support model, testing discipline, or user experience, improvement may remain shallow and temporary. Good guidance helps leaders see quality as a combination of characteristics that work together, not as one isolated measurement that can be raised while the rest of the system continues to deteriorate. The phrase providing guidance is especially important in this episode because it describes a role that must be handled carefully. An assurance professional or auditor can help identify where system quality needs attention, explain what good practice looks like, highlight risks created by weak quality, and recommend ways the organization might improve. That is different from taking ownership of the system, managing the project directly, or becoming the person responsible for implementation. Beginners sometimes blur those lines and assume that if someone understands the problem well, that person should simply direct the fix. In practice, management must remain responsible for operating the system, selecting priorities, funding improvements, assigning staff, and accepting the results. Guidance is valuable because it helps management make better decisions, but it should not replace management accountability. A strong professional in this area helps the organization see the path to improvement more clearly without becoming the owner of the path itself. That distinction protects both governance and independence, and it keeps roles clear when changes are later evaluated. That question of independence deserves special attention because it sits near the heart of how good guidance should be delivered. If the person providing quality improvement guidance becomes too involved in designing or approving the exact solution, it can become harder later to evaluate the outcome objectively. That does not mean useful advice must be vague or distant. It means the advice should be framed in a way that informs management rather than taking over management's role. For example, it is reasonable to explain that recurring defects suggest weak requirements review, inadequate testing, or poor change oversight, and to recommend stronger practices in those areas. It is much less appropriate to become the person who owns the design decision, selects the vendor, or signs off on the final system configuration as though the responsibility had shifted away from operations or business leadership. Good guidance therefore balances helpfulness with discipline. It points management towards stronger control, stronger process, and stronger outcomes while still making it clear that the organization itself must decide, implement, and own the improvement effort. Before useful guidance can be given, the current state of the system has to be understood honestly. This means looking at what the system is supposed to do, how it is actually being used, what complaints or failures have appeared, what business processes depend on it, and where existing controls or support practices may be falling short. Beginners sometimes imagine quality advice begins with best practice statements, but strong guidance usually begins with listening and observation. A system may seem low quality because users are frustrated, yet the deeper issue may be unclear requirements or poor training rather than faulty code. In another case, leadership may believe the problem is slow performance when the real weakness lies in poor data quality or a fragile manual process surrounding the system. An auditor providing guidance needs enough understanding of the business context to avoid superficial recommendations. That means asking how the system supports operations, how failure would affect the organization, which problems are recurring, and what evidence suggests the current way of working is no longer sufficient for the system's purpose. One major area where guidance is often needed is requirements and design quality. Many system problems begin long before the first user complaint or production incident. They begin when the organization does not define clearly what the system should do, who it serves, what controls it must support, what data it must handle, and how success will be judged. If requirements are vague, incomplete, or poorly communicated, the final system may technically meet a specification while still failing to support the real business need. Guidance on quality improvement often means helping management understand that better outcomes start earlier than they think. Strong requirements review, business involvement, control awareness, and design discipline all contribute to system quality later. If those earlier stages are weak, the organization may end up solving the same functional and control problems repeatedly after deployment. An auditor can add value here by showing how recurring defects or user frustration may point back to earlier lifecycle weaknesses, and by recommending that future improvements include stronger definition, review, and alignment from the start rather than relying only on downstream repairs. Process quality is equally important because even a well-designed system can perform poorly if the surrounding operational processes are weak. A system may depend on accurate data entry, timely approvals, exception review, user support, maintenance discipline, and controlled changes to remain dependable. If those processes are inconsistent, The organization may blame the technology for problems that are actually rooted in human workflow or governance gaps. That is why quality improvement guidance should look beyond the application screen and consider the full operating environment around it. Are users trained well enough to perform the process correctly? Are responsibilities clear when errors appear? Are incidents tracked in a way that reveals recurring patterns? Does support resolve problems meaningfully or simply close tickets quickly? Auditors providing guidance can help management see where quality is being undermined by weak process control rather than by the system alone. This broader perspective is useful because it prevents the organization from spending money on technical fixes when part of the real solution lies in ownership, training, communication, or workflow redesign. Measurement is another critical part of quality improvement because organizations cannot improve what they do not understand well enough to observe. That does not mean every system needs a large dashboard full of complicated measures. It means management should have some reliable way to judge whether the system is becoming more accurate, more stable, more usable, or more dependable over time. Useful measures might include recurring error rates, processing failures, response times, backlog of known defects, user complaints, reconciliation issues, downtime patterns, or rework caused by incorrect outputs. The point is not to create attractive reports for their own sake. The point is to create evidence that supports decisions. Auditors look at measurement because poor quality environments often rely too much on anecdote, urgency, or individual frustration rather than on patterns that can guide improvement. Good guidance helps the organization identify which indicators truly matter, which ones reflect business impact rather than just technical activity, and how measurement can be used to decide whether an improvement effort is solving the right problem instead of merely creating the appearance of motion. Testing and review practices are also central to system quality, and they are often where weaknesses become visible before wider damage occurs. A low-quality environment may push changes into production too quickly, depend on limited testing, or treat testing as a technical formality rather than as a business and control safeguard. Stronger environments understand that testing should confirm not only whether the system works in a narrow sense, but whether it behaves correctly under expected conditions, handles exceptions properly, preserves controls, and supports the people who will rely on it. Guidance in this area may include encouraging stronger user involvement and validation, clearer test criteria, better handling of defects before release, and more disciplined review of how changes affect interconnected processes. An auditor can be especially helpful by showing management that repeated post-release issues often reflect predictable weaknesses in pre-release discipline. That insight helps move the conversation away from blaming individual mistakes and toward improving the quality mechanisms that should have caught those issues earlier, before users and customers became the testing process by default. Defect management, incident review, and root cause analysis provide another powerful source of improvement guidance. Many organizations are good at fixing visible symptoms quickly because the pressure to restore service is immediate. What they often do less well is stepping back afterward to understand why the issue happened, why it was not prevented earlier, and whether similar weaknesses exist elsewhere. If the same type of defect appears repeatedly, or if incident response restores function without reducing recurrence, the system may remain trapped in a reactive cycle. Guidance on quality improvement should therefore encourage learning, not just recovery. That means looking for patterns in incidents, analyzing the contributing process or design weaknesses, and asking what changes would reduce the likelihood of repetition. Auditors add value when they help management see that recurring problems are evidence, not bad luck. They show where the control environment, lifecycle discipline, support model, or ownership structure may need strengthening. In that way, incident history becomes more than a record of past trouble. It becomes a map pointing toward where quality can and should be improved. Change management and organizational culture also shape whether quality improvement becomes durable or temporary. A company may identify defects and even implement corrections, but if the broader culture rewards speed over discipline, discourages open reporting of problems, or treats quality work as secondary to visible delivery, the same weaknesses often return. System quality improves best where change is introduced thoughtfully, where concerns can be raised without fear, and where staff understand that careful work reduces future disruption rather than merely slowing today's project. Guidance in this area often involves helping leaders understand that quality is not something added at the end. It is built through habits, expectations, and management behavior across the life cycle. If teams are pushed to bypass review, skip documentation, or minimize testing to meet short deadlines, quality issues should not come as a surprise later. Auditors can help management connect cultural choices to technical outcomes, which is often one of the most useful forms of guidance because it shifts the conversation from isolated errors to the broader environment that makes those errors more likely. A simple example can make all of this feel more concrete. Imagine an organization whose claims processing system is technically available most of the time, yet users regularly complain that corrections are slow, results are inconsistent, and certain transactions require repeated manual intervention. Management may first assume the answer is a new module or a vendor upgrade, but a closer review shows unclear business rules, weak testing of changes, inconsistent user training, and poor follow-up on recurring defects that have been appearing for months. In that case, providing guidance on quality improvement means helping management see that the issue is not just one broken screen or one missing feature. The deeper need is stronger requirements discipline, better process ownership, more meaningful defect review, and clearer measures of what good performance should look like. That kind of guidance is valuable because it points the organization toward durable improvement rather than temporary patching. It also helps management invest in changes that address the real causes of weak quality instead of spending energy only on the loudest symptom. There are also several common misconceptions worth clearing away for beginners. One is the belief that quality improvement is mainly about fixing bugs after the system is already live. In reality, quality is influenced by planning, design, control awareness, testing, user preparation, support practices, and change discipline long before production issues appear. Another misconception is that quality improvement belongs only to technical teams, when in fact business owners, users, support staff, and leadership all affect whether a system remains fit for purpose. A third is the idea that providing guidance means giving vague encouragement rather than practical direction. Strong guidance should be specific enough to help management act, but disciplined enough to preserve management ownership and auditor independence. These misconceptions matter because they often cause organizations to respond too narrowly, focusing on code fixes or tool changes while leaving the deeper quality drivers untouched. Good guidance widens the lens, helping the organization see that quality is created through coordinated decisions and behaviors across the full life of the system, not through one late-stage repair effort. As we come to the end, the main lesson is that providing guidance on information systems quality improvement is really about helping an organization build more dependable, accurate, usable, and well-governed systems without taking ownership away from management. Quality is not a decorative idea, and it is not limited to the absence of obvious defects. It is the practical condition in which systems support business needs reliably enough, safely enough, and clearly enough that people can trust the outputs and work with confidence. An assurance professional adds value by identifying where quality is weak, explaining why it matters, and pointing management toward stronger requirements, better process control, more meaningful measurement, more disciplined testing, and better learning from failure. When that guidance is done well, the organization is better able to improve not just one troubled application, but its broader approach to how systems are built, operated, and changed. For a new learner, that is the key takeaway to remember. Real quality improvement happens when organizations stop treating defects as isolated annoyances and start using them as signals that the system, the process, or the governance around it needs to become stronger.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.